Washington is moving toward a political deadline that could force a reckoning over America's role in a widening Middle East conflict. On Capitol Hill, lawmakers are closing in on the point where Congress may have to decide whether the United States remains tied to any military confrontation involving Iran or whether it moves to formally limit presidential war powers. And as that debate approaches, events on the ground are accelerating in the most brutal way possible. Because while Washington argues over procedure, Gaza is once again showing what war looks like when diplomacy fails. According to medics on the ground, Israeli strikes killed multiple Palestinians in a new wave of attacks. In Gaza City, 3 people were reported killed, including 2 police officers. In Beit Lahia, tank shelling killed 2 more. In Khan Yunis, 7 people were killed when a strike hit near a wedding hall. Witnesses said the target was a police vehicle. Among the dead were 4 police officers. Those numbers matter, but who was hit may matter even more. Gaza's Interior Ministry said the attacks were not random battlefield incidents. It accused Israel of deliberately targeting the police force, the very institution tasked with preserving basic public order inside a besieged enclave already pushed to collapse. If accurate, that means the strikes were aimed not only at people, but at governance itself. And that changes the story, because modern war is not only about defeating armed groups, it is often about destroying the systems that allow civilian life to continue. Police stations, courts, water departments, aid distribution networks, traffic control, municipal workers. Once those institutions break, daily life breaks with them. That is what makes these latest strikes politically significant, far beyond Gaza. The Israeli military confirmed it carried out a strike in Gaza City, even as a ceasefire framework has repeatedly been cited, announced, discussed, and then violated. The pattern has become familiar. Public language speaks of de-escalation, ground reality delivers explosions, and every time that happens, pressure rises somewhere else. This time, that somewhere else is Washington. Under the U.S. Constitution, Congress has the power to declare war. Presidents, however, have increasingly used military force under emergency authority, self-defense claims, or prior authorizations passed decades ago. That tension has existed for years, but conflict with Iran raises the stakes dramatically. Iran is not a militia. It is a state with missiles, regional allies, cyber capabilities, naval leverage near critical shipping lanes, and the ability to trigger responses across multiple countries at once. Any U.S. military engagement involving Iran could rapidly expand beyond one strike or one operation. That is why congressional deadlines matter. When American forces are drawn into hostilities, lawmakers often move to demand briefings, limit funding, require troop withdrawals, or pass war powers resolutions compelling debate. Even when such measures fail, they reveal something deeper. Whether the political system believes the White House has gone too far or not far enough. And right now, there is no clear consensus. Some lawmakers argue that any confrontation with Iran risks another open-ended Middle East war the United States cannot afford militarily, politically, or financially. Others say failing to deter Iran invites more attacks on American personnel, allies, and shipping routes. Both sides claim they are preventing disaster. Meanwhile, events in Gaza continue feeding the larger crisis. To understand why, it helps to see how these conflicts connect. Israel's war in Gaza does not occur in isolation. Iran backs armed groups across the region, including actors hostile to Israel and the United States. Every major Israeli operation creates pressure on those networks to respond. Every response creates pressure on Washington to back Israel more visibly. Every American move then increases the chance of direct U.S.-Iran confrontation. That is the cycle Congress is trying to interrupt. But deadlines in Washington do not stop missiles in real time. In Khan Yunis, where witnesses said a police vehicle was struck near a wedding hall, the symbolism is especially stark. Weddings are usually markers of continuity, family, and future. A strike nearby turns that image into something else entirely. Civilian life overshadowed by permanent emergency. In Gaza City, the killing of police officers carries another message. In war zones, police are not simply law enforcers. They often become traffic managers for aid trucks, crowd controllers at food lines, responders to looting, coordinators after airstrikes, and one of the few remaining faces of order. Remove them, and scarcity becomes chaos faster. That is why Gaza's Interior Ministry framed the attacks as an attempt to undermine basic order. It is also why critics of Israel's campaign argue that the destruction of civil administration is not accidental collateral damage, but part of a broader strategy to make organized life impossible. Israel rejects accusations that it targets civilians as policy and says it strikes militants embedded in civilian areas. That official position remains central to its military defense internationally. But every strike involving police, municipal staff, or public facilities intensifies scrutiny over proportionality, intent, and the distinction between combatants and civilian institutions. Those are legal words with life and death consequences. Under international humanitarian law, civilian objects and personnel generally retain protection unless directly participating in hostilities or used for military purposes. In practice, those lines are fiercely contested. Governments cite intelligence, rights groups demand evidence, civilians bury the dead while lawyers debate categories. That gap between official justification and visible destruction is one reason global frustration keeps growing, and Washington feels that pressure too. The United States remains Israel's most important international backer, supplying military aid, diplomatic cover in many forums, and strategic partnership. That means when strikes hit sensitive targets in Gaza, the political fallout often reaches the White House and Congress within hours. Members of Congress face competing demands from constituents, donors, activists, veterans, religious communities, and national security officials. Some want unconditional support for Israel. Others want arms restrictions, ceasefire enforcement, or accountability measures. Many simply want America out of another regional war. Now add Iran to that equation. If tensions with Tehran rise while Gaza burns, lawmakers must weigh two overlapping crises at once: support for an ally engaged in a devastating campaign, and the risk of direct confrontation with a regional power capable of wider retaliation. That is why the phrase "no end in sight" is more than rhetoric. It reflects the absence of a visible off-ramp. Israel says security requires sustained pressure. Hamas remains embedded and resilient despite enormous destruction. Gaza's civilian infrastructure is shattered. Arab governments condemn violence but remain divided. European allies call for restraint but have limited leverage. Iran calibrates support for proxies while avoiding full-scale direct war. The United States tries to deter everyone simultaneously. That balancing act rarely lasts forever. History shows regional conflicts often expand not through one grand decision, but through accumulation. A strike here, a retaliation there, a ship attacked, a border incident. A drone interception, a militia rocket, a misread signal. Then suddenly leaders are managing a war they never officially chose. Congressional deadlines exist precisely because of that danger. They are designed to force debate before momentum replaces consent. But Congress itself is divided, polarized, and often slow. Even when members agree a conflict is dangerous, they may disagree on language, timing, constitutional authority, or political cost. Presidents know this, allies know this, adversaries know this. So while lawmakers prepare statements and draft resolutions, actors in the region continue moving at combat speed. For civilians in Gaza, those timelines are cruelly disconnected from reality. A committee hearing in Washington can take days to schedule. An airstrike takes seconds. The targeting of police officers also reveals a second-order crisis many outside observers miss. What happens the day after war? If governing institutions are dismantled now, who manages Gaza later? Who distributes aid? Who patrols streets? Who investigates crime? Who runs crossings? Who clears rubble? Who records births and deaths? Who prevents armed fragmentation? Destroying governance can be easier than rebuilding it. That unresolved question haunts diplomats because any post-war plan requires some authority structure. Yet many of the very institutions that could stabilize civilian life have been degraded, discredited, or directly hit. So even if guns fell silent tomorrow, disorder could continue. For the United States, that creates a strategic trap. Washington may want reduced involvement, but every collapse of order increases the chance it gets pulled back in through humanitarian emergencies, hostage diplomacy, naval protection missions, regional deterrence, or reconstruction pressure. This is how wars outlive battlefield objectives. And that is why the congressional deadline matters even to people thousands of miles from Capitol Hill. It represents one of the few formal moments when elected officials must decide whether policy is driving events or events are driving policy. Right now, the evidence suggests the second. In Gaza, strikes continue. In Israel, security fears remain acute. In Iran, strategic patience has limits. In Washington, time is running on passive ambiguity. No side appears ready to concede. No framework appears stable enough to hold. No institution appears strong enough to impose a clean settlement. So the immediate story is about deaths in Gaza and a deadline in Congress. The larger story is about a system under strain, war powers tested, alliances stressed, civilian order shattered, and regional escalation always one incident away. As lawmakers approach their decision point, the battlefield keeps moving faster than politics. And in conflicts like this, when politics moves too slowly, the cost is usually paid somewhere else first.